Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Lauren. Oh, good. Some of my students had trouble getting in. Let's see if they're in. Oh, good.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Sure.
Thanks so much for coming. Good morning. How are you?
I'm just going to check my email to make sure students aren't struggling with issues. I will be back.
Good morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to hear. If you're a panelist, if you could turn on your video, that would be great. We could just test out your audio and your video.
Am I coming through clearly, Colleen?
Sound great.
Morning, everyone.
Morning, Eileen. Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I don't know what I'm going to do when I start to see people in person. I think I'm just going to give people a big hug.
Yeah, it is nice. It is nice to see. I'm in 2 days a week, so it is nice to see people some days, for sure.
Yes. And everybody's like sitting on their edge of the seat for the election. What a day.
Yes, thank you all for making it this morning. Really appreciate it. Might have been a long night for some people.
So I'm going to ask students to turn on their video as well as we start. Carlene is going to start, and Lauren is, I'm looking for you, Lauren. She's our IT person. Thank you, Lauren. Hello, Dr. Fredericks. Our dean.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome.
Okay, Carlene, do you want to start?
Do you want to give it another minute and see if
Oh,
we
sure.
get some more students? That'd be
Sure.
great. Thanks everyone for joining us this morning. Just some tips on Zoom. If you want to put in a speaker view, sometimes that helps so you can see who is talking. Also, we are recording this session, right, Lauren?
Yep.
So just so everybody's aware. And if you could mute yourself when you're not talking, since there is so many people on the call this morning. Okay, I guess we'll get started. So welcome. Thank you so much for coming this morning on behalf of Career Planning and the School of Management, and Eileen and Lauren are here, Dr. Fletcher, Dr. Fredericks. So good to see so many of you this morning. Dr. Burnell and I, talked about putting together this panel as a way for students to connect with some of the employers in our local area who are still recruiting for internships for jobs as well. And we put our heads together and came up with some great names this morning. We're so excited to have you. So if we could start with, maybe if Benjamin could start, if you could just introduce yourself, who you are, your title, who you work for, and maybe tell us a little bit about your career story and how you
Sure.
got to your position.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Carlene. Happy to go first. So my name is Ben Laird. I work as an analyst at Ayco. Analyst doesn't really tell you much about what we do or what I do, but Ayco has very few titles. It's like analyst, associate, VP, and director, but I work in recruiting. And again, my employer's name is Ayco. So we are a Goldman Sachs company. So I work in talent acquisition, which, is what Ayco calls recruiting. In terms of my career journey, my route here was not a direct one. I come to Ayco mid-career. My undergraduate and graduate studies were in psychology and mental health counseling. So I got very used to talking with any and all types of people about any and all topics. And then, kind of segued into human resources and recruiting, work for large organizations. The last company I worked at before coming to Ayco is actually the largest staffing organization in the world. So certainly, had worked in a corporate entity before, but had not worked in financial services before coming to Ayco. So certainly had to learn the industry, learn the company, and have been with Ayco now since December of 2014. So just about 6 years. I have here a brief overview of the organization. So Ayco is a financial services company. We are a wholly owned subsidiary of Goldman Sachs. Wasn't always that way. Ayco started with 2 people in the Capital District of New York. Our first office was in Albany. And we had the good fortune of our founders creating a part of the market or creating a business. And that was the business of company-sponsored financial planning. So a lot of the clients that our company has are on a company-sponsored plan where they're receiving our company services as a benefit to them. So what that means is that our financial planning teams are not selling. There's no cold calling. We work with, at this point, over 55 of the Fortune 100, close to half of the Fortune 1000. And I know, because I'm typically the person that does the initial phone interviews with candidates, that there's a lot of trepidation, particularly on the part of people who have never, done this kind of work before, financial planning, that they're going to have to, spend a lot of time prospecting for business or cold calling, not so. Ayco's model, is where we're being provided every benefit. Recruiting, what are we recruiting for? We're always recruiting. As a recruiter, I think one of the best things about working at Ayco is that most of the time when we're looking for people, it's because of growth. Internships, this summer, it was a pretty typical year for us. Talking summer 2020, we had 92 full-time summer interns. Now, I would say probably about 2/3 of those were kind of working with groups within our company that are headquartered in the Capital District of New York between our Cohoes headquarters and our Latham location. But we have several other regional locations around the country. This year was the first year we had to do it virtual. So we figured out a way to do it. We did have a fully virtual program. We're also looking for full-time permanent employees for folks that are graduating in either December or in May. Our typical hiring year for Ayco will hire somewhere between 120 to 160 new full-time permanent folks. Most of those people are going to be doing financial planning work in one shape or another. Ayco does do investment management, and because of the size of our company, we have about 1,800 associates now. We have a lot of the types of departments that you might see at other corporations. So let's say compliance, technology, operations. If you're interested in doing marketing, we do have groups at the firm that do marketing. So I don't want to hog the conversation, but hope that was a good overview.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Ben. Thank you to Ayco for partnering with us. We've been partnering with you for several years now. So thanks for the partnership.
This is the part of my job I love the most. Getting out and talking to schools and talking to students. Doing it virtually this year is a little bit of a letdown for me, but happy to participate however I can. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Abby, you want to introduce yourself and tell us where you work and your title and a little overview of the Peace Corps?
Sure thing. Good morning, everybody. My name is Abby Knickerbocker, and I am the Peace Corps recruiter to Northeastern New York. And my role at Peace Corps is really just to help you to get to know our agency, help you set expectations for service. And if you decide that you'd like to apply, I can help you come up with a more personalized strategy as to how you want to submit an application to us. I think it's really important for everybody to kind of know who we are and what we do. So for those of you who haven't heard of Peace Corps, we are a U.S. federal agency, and we send U.S. citizens to serve overseas. We only work internationally, and we work to create partnerships with countries all across the world. And then we work by asking them, hey, what do you need and what can we help with? And once we have a clearer picture of what that country and what the communities within that country need, then we will send volunteers. And so I always like to kind of break down what a volunteer is, because we work for 27 months and a lot of us think, wow, that's a long time to be working as a volunteer. And so I like to frame this kind of as volunteer service with a twist. So our volunteers, it's completely free to apply. It is something that we provide you with a stipend for. So you're going to be living at the local level, but it covers your day-to-day. We provide you with student loan accommodations. So just know that we're really dedicated to supporting you both during and after your service. And again, we look for folks who are really interested in delving into community development. We're looking for people who want to work with local leaders in communities across the world and helping to think about what skills do we want to work on together? How can we combine our efforts to create best practices? What are some of the things that I learned during my time in undergrad that might influence the community abroad? So how I landed at Peace Corps, after undergrad, I did kind of a hodgepodge of different things. I worked as an English teacher, and I had a certification in teaching English as a second language. I was the manager of a local farm market. So by the time I got to Peace Corps, I really had done a whole lot of different things. And I realized that it was really the aspect of sinking into a community, figuring out what they needed, how I could best support them was what brought me to Peace Corps, and that was part of my own career journey and my transition to working in recruitment for Peace Corps. So just know that for me, I became an education volunteer because of the work I did as an English teacher. I volunteered in the Dominican Republic, and I basically was there to just get kids excited about learning how to read and write. And I partnered with families and local teachers and did a lot of small group work. But our volunteers, honestly, they span multiple sectors. So we have a business program, we have an agriculture and environment program that focus on sustainability issues. We have a health program. So if you are nursing or a pre-med student, it could be a great fit for you to focus on some of our healthcare initiatives. We teach English as a second language. If you're a math major, we teach math, science, primary literacy, and we also have a youth and development program. So just know that we welcome folks from all different backgrounds, all different majors, and I hope that you'll consider looking into service opportunities with us.
Thanks so much, Abby. And you've been a great partner for the last few years working with our office.
I just wanted to say one other thing, Abby. We are currently at Russell Sage putting together a sustainability minor. Dr. Fletcher's leading that up. So we're pretty excited about that and working with the Peace Corps in that sort of area of excitement, really.
Yeah, that's our
hopefully
focus.
We'll have some students that will be interested in that in the future.
That's great. How about Jeff Meade? You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me. Jeff Meade, I am the general manager of the Cool Insuring Arena in Glens Falls, and then the president of the Adirondack Thunder hockey team also that plays out of the Cool Insuring Arena. So basically, what do we do here? For the arena side, certainly we host the Adirondack Thunder, our professional hockey team. We play in the ECHL, which is in the sports world, the AA level of professional hockey. The New Jersey Devils are our NHL affiliate, and the Binghamton Devils are our AHL affiliate. So, assuming we're ever allowed to open back up again, we also host a number of concerts during the year. The Harlem Globetrotters come here almost every year. We do a rodeo every year, which is a pretty big endeavor, and it's well received in our town. It's actually supposed to be this weekend, but certainly, it's been postponed. Excuse me. We do a lot of New York State public high school athletic events. We host the boys state championships every year, and it was supposed to be back a few months ago in March. Certainly, it was postponed due to the pandemic. The New York State girls volleyball finals are here every year, and we do a lot of other events. Certainly we have ice. We have a lot of youth and adult hockey teams that skate here on non-event days, but we're a prototypical sports and entertainment entity. So that's what we do. Myself, I was born and raised in Glens Falls and went to college at Potsdam up north, a few hundred miles or a few miles. After Potsdam, I left, like a lot of kids in small towns, looking, to get out of town and, conquer the world. So I'm not quite sure if I did, but I saw a lot of this country with a lot of jobs. I spent some time in Florida, Iowa, Michigan, Phoenix, north of Chicago, and then I was in Dallas for 12 years, all for a lot of the same companies, but all in the sports world. And then I had an opportunity to come back in 2015 to run the arena. And I thought it was a good idea to come back for this opportunity. And certainly, as I mentioned, my mom and dad still live here. I still have a grandma and a sister here. So I navigated through the country and decided to come home. Kind of our story here is the arena was operated by the city of Glens Falls for about 35 years. And it was just a big drain upon the taxpayers. And the city was eventually shut the arena down. So a group of citizens of Glens Falls thought it was too important to our community to close. So they kind of banded together, raised a bunch of money to form the Adirondack Civic Center Coalition. And, 6 years later, we've operated the arena and we've had a little bit of success. With the hockey team, the Calgary Flames own the team here, and they were really struggling financially and they were looking to leave Glens Falls. same story, too important to our town. You know, we had the Adirondack Red Wings for so many years back in the glory days of Glens Falls and professional hockey. We banded together, bought the team, and this would be our 4th year operating the team, and we've been pretty successful on and off the ice as well. So that's kind of, you know, that's kind of the organization. That's kind of me. You know, we use interns for everything, more in the hockey world than the arena world. But, you know, if a person's interested in game operations, marketing, we do a lot of graphics and digital work nowadays, event management. We need and use interns for all the time for our hockey team, and certainly the arena as well. And I will say this, you know, my head of finance currently now used to be an intern. My assistant, who also runs our retail store and music program, used to be an intern. My director of events used to be an intern. So, you know, not only do we use interns, but we hire interns. So the one thing I always say to an intern is, you know, your job interview starts every day you're at the arena. So, so if you get an internship, whether here at the arena or you're anywhere else, you know, certainly, you know, there's somebody looking at your work every day. So it's quite an on-the-job interview that you have. So that's kind of my pitch. And again, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeffrey. You know, we have at RSC, we have a sport management program in our business administration bachelor degree, and then we have a sport and rec management program. So, you know, students that are on this call are, I know, listening. So thank you for coming today.
Oh, you bet. Yeah, I did speak at Bob Stumaker's class not too long ago, and then last year. I think I recognized a couple of the faces that were in his class as well. So
Great. Thank you.
Wonderful. Megan Johnson from Zones.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Megan Johnson. I am a recruiter at Zones in Menands, New York. You may have heard of us previously listed as infrastructure. And so what we do are IT solutions. And about 4 years ago, Zones, whom is a Seattle-based company, acquired infrastructure. So now what we do is end-to-end services for businesses globally for their IT support. So it could be anywhere from helping local colleges update their hardware and software in their classrooms to running a Microsoft call center and helping businesses that use Microsoft Office 365 with their technical support. So I work and focus on our Microsoft team and our college recruitment efforts. And so what this means is that I do things like this. I get to participate and work with all the local colleges to bring entry-level new hires into our business, whether it is usually for our Microsoft team, but it could be in our entry-level sales role, it could be our staff accountant role. So I've been able to dip my hands in a little bit of all entry-level positions for different roles across our company and across the US. So our first location is in Auburn, Washington. Our second is in the Menands office as well. But then we are located in over 20 different states in the US, and then a global enterprise in Canada, UK, China, India. We are in expanding to South America, Hong Kong, and Japan in 2021. And then we're also in Australia. So we are very fortunate to be expanding globally and hiring a lot of different opportunities across the US as well. So my background, I actually went to Siena, studied psychology, and then I went to Sage Graduate School and studied school counseling. So I am a proud alum of the Sage Graduate School program as well. And so I started to go be a high school counselor, and I knew that I wanted to do something with students, but I knew I didn't want to teach. I was very fortunate that I had gotten some internships in undergrad to help me figure out what I liked and what I didn't like, help me figure out that school counseling was for me, and I actually did it for a little bit. I worked as a 9th grade school counselor at a local high school, filled a maternity leave. After that, I also graduated in 2008. And so right around that time, there was a little bit of a bump in the road with the economy. Yes. And so I was trying to find permanent positions and also looking to battle against people that had been in the industry for 15 years. So I wasn't really finding anything. So I went back to my old part-time job, did what I needed to do, and sold Hallmark ornaments for another 8 years total. I started working there when I was 16. So then, lo and behold, through my networking and through just people that I've known, I started working in a career center at a local institution, and I worked there for 8 years. So I really worked with students like you, hosting these events, finding employers locally. It's funny because I know some of the recruiters here because I worked with them at my old school to help them find students. So we are coming full circle. And so after leaving there, working with students to help them find jobs and helping employers find students, I really like the employer side, and I really care and am passionate about keeping students local to our community and helping them find jobs in our community. And when this opportunity opened up to help build a college recruitment program for a local company and keep our students local, I jumped at the chance. So I've been here for just over 1.5 years and really have taken a deep dive into the local college scene to help hire our students, which I love. So a couple things that we have that might be of interest to you. So locally, we do have the Microsoft team, and we do have some entry-level IT roles. The nice part about this is that training is included. So you might find that you have an idea that you like technology, you might not have majored in it, but at the same time, you might dabble in it. That might be a nice entry-level position for you if IT is something that you're interested in, because for a lot of our IT roles, we do provide training. Specifically for the Microsoft team, we do have a temporary project that we're working on that we're looking for field techs, so the hardware side of things as well. And then when it comes to the business side, we are hiring over 100 sales agents in our Auburn office. So this just kind of came down the pike a couple weeks ago. So this is perfect. So if you are looking to relocate, if you're looking to explore, if you're looking to maybe move out onto the West Coast, we are hiring recent college grads for sales roles, which are a little bit different from some of the other companies I've seen in a sales position where there is a yearly compensation, but we also give you a book of business. So it's not looking to say like, okay, here you go, here's all the training that you need, here's, you're working on comp only, good luck. So we do try to give you as many tools as possible to make you successful in the role with movement up within the company. So that just kind of came down the pike a little while ago. So we are very excited to be doing that.
That's awesome, Megan. Thank you so much for sharing that.
That's great, Megan. And students, many of the students that are on this call right now just finished a professional selling course with me. And wow, you listening to that, students? All right, there's a career path. There's the job right there.
Yep.
Thank you, Megan.
Of course.
Thank you. Nathan Wilson.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me. I'm Nathan Wilson. I'm Talent Acquisition Specialist at Capcom Federal Credit Union. What that means is that I'm a recruiter, but I think our HR team looks at things very holistically, and so I have a number of other responsibilities as well. I take on our Equal Employment Opportunity Plan preparations, and I also partner with marketing on employer branding. So that's been some great things that I've taken on since I've gotten here that I'm really enjoying. I have a very non-traditional background for recruiting and HR. I went to school for classical music, and I got out of school in 2007 with a master's degree in music, and again came into the financial crisis a few years after that, and landed on my feet in retail and was a retail manager for several years, managing teams of 30, 40, 50 people. Really enjoyed it, but found a love for HR and have kind of snuck my way into HR through recruiting, and I'm really enjoying it. And I think that gives me some perspective too when I work with hiring managers on, that have large teams. I understand what they're going through, especially in our branches with our frontline individuals and everything that they've had to deal with this year. I can kind of sympathize. So, brief bit about Capcom here. I'm here at Capcom because I've always been like a credit union person. I just feel like it's a really important thing. And so a credit union, if you're not aware for the students, is a financial institution. We offer very similar services to a bank, but it's a not-for-profit institution. And it's owned and managed by members locally and by a local volunteer board of directors. So we've been around since 1953. The credit union started in one desk drawer at what eventually became Verizon. And over the past 10 or 15 years has really grown exponentially. We're looking to continue to do that, but we have 12 branches now locally and manage over $2.1 billion in assets. And we just found out that for the 17th straight year, we're one of the top workplaces in Albany, as voted by our employees compared to other employees from other places. And this is from the Times Union. So we're really, really proud of that. And I just think that has a lot to say about our culture and about the way that we treat each other and about how the way that we treat our members. Always happy to share that. The things that we're currently recruiting for, we do have a few open positions for full-time and part-time tellers. We call them financial service associates or FSAs, and we promote from these positions all the time. This is our main pool of future talent. I can confidently say that 10 to 12 times already this year, we've promoted folks from those positions into other departments within Capcom, and they've kind of found new homes and are super happy with the skills that they're learning. Also hiring for a few other things that just happen to be open, a mortgage loan funder. We're hiring tax folks for the upcoming tax season, of course. We have an open role in IT for a systems technologist. So those are some of the things that I'm working on, but there will be new things coming available. We're just about to approve our budget for 2021, which is always exciting, and see what new roles have been approved for that. We really try to actually go by our budget, which is nice, and so we'll have some new roles that I probably don't even know about yet coming available. Some of those will be internships. We usually do about 15 to 20 over the summer, a mixture of internships with specific departments and summer teller roles. And I guess the biggest thing I would say, in addition to this, is that our process has become really 95% virtual. I mean, this is how we do things now, and we've hired or promoted approximately 40 people since March, completely via Microsoft Teams or Skype or the phone, whatever it took to do it. And I can really only count on one hand the number of in-person interviews we've had since that time. So I would just really encourage the students on the call, continue to work on your skills in the environment like this. It's super important, and it's not going away. So thanks.
Thanks so much, Nathan.
Thank you, Nathan. I'm loving these stories about how people have taken a path in college and then it's not the path that you thought. I love that. It's a journey, right, with twists and turns. And thanks everybody for sharing stories. And I can't wait to hear what else people have to say.
So Krista from AFLAC.
Hi, everyone. And interestingly enough, yes, my story kind of aligns with Nathan's story in that sometimes when you enter into college or you have a certain idea of the direction you're looking to go, it doesn't always really go that same way. And I think that's the beauty of opportunity out there. And that's really my story. I am the regional sales coordinator for AFLAC out of the Albany office. And when AFLAC approached me back in 2005 to come aboard as an intern, my initial response was that of hesitance because I was studying communications at the College of St. Rose, and I did not have any plans to go into the insurance industry. In fact, if you were to ask me which industry would be the least appealing, I would say insurance. And I ended up going on the interview and learning about AFLAC. And I was so intrigued by many aspects of what AFLAC had to offer, from what the company does for people and families, and also the opportunity it provides. So at AFLAC, we're a Fortune 500 company, and we provide voluntary supplemental coverages that are designed to go in addition to major medical coverage. And the reason that's important to many is because even with major medical, there are still out-of-pocket expenses, and maybe co-pays, deductibles, maybe travel costs, missed time from work. And AFLAC pays cash to assist with all of that. And for me, it became a little bit more personal because I had a friend who had gone through a serious illness at a young age, and I saw the impact it had on their family. And the impact was emotional, It was physical, and it also was financial. And we oftentimes don't think about that when we have health insurance. We think we're all set. And so AFLAC coverages do just that. They assist with those out-of-pocket costs. So immediately I wanted to get involved with AFLAC. What I didn't know is that my internship, which never quite ended, it's been, 15 plus years, would lead to such an amazing opportunity. And so what I had done was I started as an intern, and essentially what that means is an intern in our organization is essentially a part-time team member. They have the same opportunity as our full-time folks. In fact, a lot of their tasks mirror that of what I do day to day. So our interns get real life experience in marketing, in building a business, in so many different facets of the business world. And there's two different sides of AFLAC. There's AFLAC corporate. So our corporate offices, we do have a corporate office in in Albany, New York, and also in Columbus, Georgia. And then there's the field, and I represent the field side. And the folks on the field side, we are independent representatives, which means essentially we build our own businesses. But we're in business for ourselves, just not by ourselves. And for me, that was extremely important because as a college student, when I entered into AFLAC, I did not have any experience in building a business, marketing, sales. I had no idea where to begin. And I was attached to a mentor. In fact, every single team member in our organization has a mentor. I mentor folks who've been here for 20, 30 years. So every single person has support. And with our organization, the beauty is there's a lot of upward movement, and we are a national organization. So if somebody comes into our organization and says to me, Krista, I want to move up into management, guess what? We have management opportunities currently open. And it's not how long have you been here? It is what are you doing during the time that you are here? So we oftentimes promote folks that may be new in our organization versus those who may have been here for 10 years. So there's a lot of opportunity for growth and management. Furthermore, we also have opportunity on the corporate side. Corporate, who's a great support to me, also takes a look at our team members to promote them into their side of the business. So AFLAC really does look to promote from within. So if there is an opportunity at corporate in New York, which is Albany, or Columbus, Georgia, they tend to look at the field, meaning positions like mine and many of my team members, and I oversee 40 different team members in and around the Capital District. That also consists of 3 managers. I'm looking to add 2 more. So definite immediate opportunity. But they tend to take those who have the experience from the field, because who better than to support from a corporate level than those who have real life experience, feet on the ground, working with clients. And our clients are businesses. So also what we can provide is a great networking opportunity, because our team members, whether interns, part-time, full-time management, we all work with businesses and we implement our plans through companies. So we tend to meet a lot of people. A lot of them are influencers in companies. They're those who make, hiring decisions. The main folks we tend to communicate with day to day are director of HR, owner, office manager. So there's a lot of opportunity for networking as well. And as an intern, you would be doing basically everything, again, that our full-time folks are doing. We're working on market penetration. While we have a 94% name recognition as a company, we have a less than 10% market penetration US-wide. In fact, that number is 8 US-wide. So most are surprised to hear, how little that penetration is. And what that says to me is opportunity to grow. So we are looking to grow with folks who want to build businesses, who want to, get their kind of feet wet in what it looks like to build a business from the ground up with having that support. In fact, many of our team members may also run either businesses alongside their AFLAC business, or they may actually retire out of AFLAC and build a business after AFLAC, because the experience with us gives the opportunity to see what it's like to actually build a business. because that's what we do day to day. We work for ourselves, but we have a great support system to provide training, and that helps with success. So definitely looking for interns in the kind of marketing and sales role, and we will help with getting your insurance license. So we assist with that process. And also too, one of my administrative assistants, I have two, but one is a master's student attending UAlbany, and when he graduates, he's going to be moving on into a different direction. So come spring of next year, I will be looking for another administrative assistant, and that position is going to be focused on supporting my role, which is talent acquisition, overseeing my book of business. I also oversee large cases. I oversee a team. So my position is really multifaceted, and that person is like my right hand, which assists me with all of my day-to-day responsibilities. So very soon we will be opening up that position, and that position can be anywhere between 20 to 40 hours per week. Understanding that depending on what the candidate is looking for, I can supplement the remaining hours with my other administrative assistants. So definitely lots of flexibility. We really just need to know what our candidates are looking for to see how we could best fit.
Thanks so much, Krista, and sharing those opportunities.
Another long-term partner with Russell Sage. Thanks, Chris.
And I have to add, I was very excited to see that I was able to attend this panel. I always look forward to working with the college and of course working with you. And I just returned back from maternity leave on Monday, so I was very excited to see that this actually worked out, and it was during the time that I can attend. So I'm happy to be here.
Wow. And congrats, Krista. It's exciting. I loved how you talked about networking too, Krista. So it's definitely something that our students need to be doing now as students, and then it's going to continue, right, when you go into all the jobs that you have. And today is certainly a great start to doing some networking. So if you see in the chat, all of our employers have shared their information. Please do reach out to them. And you can also chat with them individually while we're still in this panel. I would love to open it up to questions from students. I know there's some questions.
Yeah, let's have some questions.
I got a question for Ben.
Hello, yes.
Do you guys offer internships throughout the semesters or just over the summer?
Yeah, we're pretty flexible on that. We kind of recognize that students have other things going on, while classes are in session, so we don't ask for the same type of time commitment. So 16 to 20 hours a week is typical if a student is interning with us, in semester. And I would just say in general, the managers at the business, they're hoping to work with interns as long as possible. So, part-time for a semester is great. Normally our summer program is probably about 10 to 12 weeks long. And if someone's with us throughout a semester, that's a little bit longer. So that's great. Sometimes students will start with us in semester and continue on through the summer. Sometimes they'll take a break and come back with us the next semester. So certainly, flexible. Full-time summer, part-time in semester.
Thank you.
Sure.
So I'd like to ask each of the panelists to identify the most critical question that you typically ask when you're interviewing. Just hop on, whomever's ready.
Want me to start since I was like first on the list when we went through. So
go to it.
For me, I love open-ended questions as an interview. I learn more about what makes people who they are when I ask open-ended questions. And yes, we'll go through the job responsibilities and we'll talk about educational experience and things like that. But we do have a few behavioral questions. Ayco is very much a team or based organization. You know, I'm collaborating with my team, the HR team, which is only about 12 people at Ayco. But, you know, in my role, I report to a lot of senior managers of the organization, all the way up to the C-suite. So, you know, you have to be able to interact with people. Yes, there are certainly going to be technical aspects to the job. But you know, we ask behavioral questions, and we also ask about times where things didn't go well. So I think candidates normally are just kind of like hardwired when they're in an interview to just talk about, you know, all the great things that they've done, and that's great. But what happens when things don't go smoothly? And communication is one of those things that, you know, two people can hear the same message, and because of their perspective, get something very different from it. So we do ask some questions about times where maybe communication didn't go very smoothly. And, you know, I mean, those aren't necessarily easy things to come up with an example for on the spot. And I recognize that as a recruiter. You know, I kind of give people a little bit of time, and I think a lot of times, you know, people will go to projects that they were involved with in school, group projects where maybe there was some difficulty there, or interactions they had at work. Sometimes people even talk about their personal lives, and that's okay, you know, as long as it stays appropriate. You know, then we kind of ask people, well, okay, so you had that difficulty. How did you overcome it? You know, how did you resolve that issue? So we look for problem solving skills, and I think the behavioral questions we ask about working in a team setting, you know, times where there may have been some mix-ups when it came to communication, I think that challenges people to kind of, in the interview, come up with, you know, some solutions, and that's what we're looking for, kind of, you know, critical thinking skills, ability to come up with a solution. I mean, anybody, you know, it's not too hard to identify a problem most of the time, but it's not just enough to identify the problem. You got to come up with a solution. And I think, you know, whenever I'm interacting with senior managers, that's what they like to hear. You know, here's an issue, here's what I think we should do to address it. And then they'll kind of give their feedback, as opposed to just kind of like dropping off a problem at their feet and walking away.
I'm happy to jump in. So for me, and I think a lot of the folks on this call can attest to, is that you might not have the traditional path. So if you're applying to a role that seems outside of kind of what your schooling says or what your major is or anything like that, for me, I always talk to those folks because you saw something in my position that interested you. So I want to see the connection. I want you to be able to tell me how maybe a seemingly unrelated experience prepares you for my job. I can see it. I can see why you tinkering around with hardware and software in your free time, even though you're an English major, prepares you for my position. But I need you to be able to explain that, because I'm not the only one you're going to be speaking to. You saw something that was in my posting that was of interest, so you need to be able to communicate that. I love hearing about classroom projects. I love hearing about clubs that you're in. I love hearing about outside activities. I love hearing about that you are a lifeguard and that you are a barista, and all of these wonderful things that help build all of these soft skills that prepare you for a position. Sometimes I think students might get into the zone of, I can only talk about school, I can only talk about my major, I can only talk about these internships. When it's you as a whole person. Not only can we teach you the technology, we can teach you our policies and processes and procedures, but we want somebody who fits with our culture. So tell me about the things, like when I say, what do you enjoy doing? And you like to cook? Tell me that you like to cook. I love to cook. We can exchange recipes. So be yourself and have your personality come through, and talk about you as a whole person and why it prepares you for that position.
Great points, Megan. One of the things that I would want to build on that is that you mentioned, you know, we're not the last person that you're going to talk to. And so I'm constantly thinking, okay, what am I seeing in potential here that I'm going to pass on to a hiring manager? And that's what I really need to see. And I know one of the things that our hiring managers at Capcom are really feel is important is why. Like, and I think we ask this a lot in interviews in general, like, okay, why did you apply for this position, or why are you interested in Capcom? But it's not just a surface level thing. It's really, why do you feel like you're a good fit for this? And because your values align, because you have some of the same fundamental core beliefs. What is it? And those are important questions, and so they might sound like kind of fluff, but take them seriously. And then something that I always ask that throws people off is, how did you prepare for this interview? And so you know, that could mean, okay, you went to our website and you read a few things, and that's fine. But there's so many other things that you can do. You could reach out to other people who work for us on LinkedIn and try and gauge their experience, or ask them a few questions that you could bring to the interview. You could find some connections that you have in other ways, personally or whatever, that and get some perspective on the potential employer through them. You know, you could look places other than just our website, you know, to find out more, or find out something recent that's going on news-wise with the place that you're applying for. Whatever it is, bring some little kernels of information that maybe the interviewer wouldn't expect you to know necessarily.
You know, just to comment on what people have been saying so far, I just had a student graduated in May, and she was on 5 Zoom interview calls. 5. So students need to know that it's not just one call, it's not just one time. And maybe they're looking for consistency. Is that something they're looking for? Maybe there are team members who need to weigh in, right? So it's not just one shot sometimes if they're interested.
Yeah, I'll kind of comment on that. So, you know, normally the initial interview, you know, I think right now I'm doing about 80% of our initial interviews, phone interviews. But then, you know, when people advance, you know, we start to get serious. So we really just have a 2-round process, but the second round is a little bit of longer conversation.
You just signed in with
Oh, and my son is remote learning, so that's who you hear in the background. You know, real world here. So, you know, the next stage, you know, our team members want to get to know people. I mean, to one of the, you know, other participants or other panel members' point, we're going to take a little bit more time when we're getting serious, or when we're thinking about making an offer, for you to meet the senior management folks that you're going to be working with every day. And there's many reasons for that. You know, I think in general at Ayco, we're blessed to have a lot of people in management positions who stay at the company and advance their career over time. So, you know, we kind of want to make sure we make the right, you know, pick initially, because people tend to stay on for a long period of time. And you know, when you're at work, or even if you're working virtually, you know, eight hours a day, you know, we need to get to know you as a person and get a sense about whether or not only if you can do the initial job that we're interviewing you for, but could you be, you know, a great add to our organization and be able to interact with senior management every day. So, you know, we want to meet you, and definitely, you know, we want to know your interests. I mean, again, I've heard some of the other panelists talk about, you know, talking about things outside the classroom, outside of professional accomplishments. You know, being relatable is a big part of the work that we do from a financial planning perspective. I mean, when you work with, you know, companies, 55 of the Fortune 100, close to half of the Fortune 1000, that's a lot of people. That's a really diverse group. So, you know, you need to be able, I mean, sometimes, you know, our clients are going to want to know, to be very numbers focused, and sometimes they're not. They might just want to talk to you about what's going on in their life and their family and the world, which is crazy this year. So you need to be able to interact with people and kind of meet them where they're at, you know. So I hope that's helpful.
Thanks so much, Ben. And just to comment on what everyone's been saying, you know, our office in Kirkland, we talk a lot about the soft skills that I think that many of you have touched on: the problem solving, communication, the interpersonal skills, the teamwork, you know, being able to have a conversation is really important. So it's definitely something that we're stressing with our students, and certainly appreciate all the employers talking about that and how important it is. What other questions do our students have?
You know, we talk about this in class all the time, the importance of asking questions. engaging, interacting. So I know you have a question, and if it's not something that is just pertaining to you, but a broad question, please ask. If you were in an interview right now, this would not work very well, right?
Well,
Let's hear a question.
while you're all thinking of your questions, I just wanted to share that my role actually ends at the time you submit your application and somebody else does your interview. But I did want to share in the chat that I have a couple of upcoming events where my role is actually to help you process what you're applying to and to help you think about writing a federal resume, which looks a lot different. So I'm just going to put that in the chat. And if somebody realizes that, hey, I want to learn about interviewing, I want to learn about writing a resume, please join me for that.
Thanks, Abby.
So for example, Morgan, you're doing an internship in the spring, right? And you haven't started yet. What's something that you are concerned about as you start an internship?
I guess, you know, getting into an area where I'm working with other people. I know the guy that set me up with the internship is the head person there, but I know there's a lot of delegation, and I'm going to be working with a lot of people that I haven't met yet. And I guess it's just going to be interesting making relationships with a lot of people that I really don't know, and I'm gonna meet them all very quickly. It's just gonna kind of be interesting to see how I get along with a lot of those people.
Great. Great point.
Any tips from our employers on forming relationships in the workplace, professional relationships?
I'll chime in on this one. So I think given the current environment, so right now about 35% of us at Ayco are in office and the rest of us are working from home. And you know, it's really been that way since mid-March. We do have a new corporate headquarters building in kind of the North Latham area, you know, mailing address of Cohoes. So I went in a few days over the summer just to kind of see the new space. But, you know, in terms of relationships, you know, the people in my team, I've already known them for 5+ years. So, you know, working remotely, there's already an established connection. I think, you know, now with so many people working remotely, it is more challenging to kind of establish relationships with your colleagues. You know, we have standing meetings. We don't always use them. Sometimes we use them just to connect, just to talk about what's going on the weekend. You know, people like to talk about their sports teams. People talk about, you know, the challenges that they're dealing with at home from a family perspective. So we'll keep these meetings, which, you know, initially were scheduled to talk about work things, but we'll just kind of keep them on the calendar as a chance to connect. And that can be a video chat, that can be an IM. Just keep the door open. Just keep checking in. I would say, you know, being open and listening. You know, these are like really basic human interaction skills, but I think they can't be overstated. You know, I think everybody's struggling on some level right now. Even if people, you know, have work and you know, have a roof over their head and aren't dealing with COVID, everybody's struggling at some level and needs to connect. And, you know, even if it's not about work, don't be afraid to talk about what you did over the weekend, you know, what you're looking forward to, what's going on in your life. You know, don't be afraid to share.
One thing, not so much about making relationships, but one kind of tip when you're starting an internship or starting a full-time job, bring a notebook and a pen with you to every meeting that you go to. I know there's a lot of different generations working in a one office environment. So some folks might see you on your phone and assume that you're not paying attention, but you might work well by taking notes on your phone. So bring a little bit of everything. So that way you can jot notes down on a notebook. You can transfer them over to your phone. You can take, if you have another piece of technology that you work well with as well, that way it can look like you're working. I can't tell you how many times I've sat in meetings and with people of all different generations, and they're on their phone and a comment gets made of like, can you pay attention? And they're like, oh no, I'm just taking notes, because to them, that's how they work. So kind of being upfront with that, or bringing a notebook, or bringing some sort of technology to say, all right, I'm gonna just jot notes down like this, can kind of make it like an open space for people to understand and know how you work as well.
That's a great point, Megan. One of my sister-in-law works for a large organization. She's a CFO, and she doodles. She's always doodled. And with COVID, she's doodling more. And the president of the organization pulled her aside and said, why aren't you paying attention? You know, all you're doing is doodling. And so she and I had a conversation, and I said, here's some research that says that your prefrontal cortex is stimulated for creativity and problem solving when you doodle. She shared that with him, and he shut up. But, you know, that's the kind of thing. We don't always know what others, especially as you're talking about multi-generational workplace, people do things differently. Lydia, did you have a question?
No.
I'll go ahead and ask one.
Great.
So as an intern, how would you go about talking to your employer about future permanent positions? So for example, I'm interning at the New York State Office of the Comptroller, and I graduate in December, so I can no longer continue my internship after that. So just any advice on that would be helpful.
I can take that one first stab at it, Justin. That's a great question. I would just say be open about it. I think a lot of hiring managers are in the situation as internships are ending, and they don't really know if the student would be interested in something like that because they just haven't been open and had that conversation. So feel free to be the one that takes charge there and says, you know what, if there's an opportunity here, I would like to be a part of this organization. It's almost like in sales asking for the business, right? It's very similar.
I'd like to jump into on that. And I definitely agree with everything that you said. What always wows me when I interview someone is seeing their intent to have a long-term relationship. Now, whether it's within our organization or maybe moving into another organization, I like to hear about them asking about upward movement. You know, what does the career path look like? How can I position myself to be the obvious choice when there is an opportunity to receive a promotion? You know, we're always hiring for our next replacement, understanding that we always have upward movement. So we're looking for folks who are ambitious, and those who ask those questions tell me that they have a lot of ambition, and that's something that's extremely appealing to any employer out there. And I also, you know, I've been told this many of times throughout my career path, but, you know, do not, you know, dress for the position you have, dress for the position that you want to have. Don't think about yourself in this box, you know, always, you know, work on tasks that are beyond your position, because again, that does show a lot of intent to grow. And of course, what employer wouldn't want someone who's, you know, a go-getter and goes above and beyond. So definitely those are some, you know, pieces of information and, you know, that I'd like to share with you also. And that's been something that we found to be extremely valuable in our interview process.
Thank you.
I actually have a question stemming off of Justin's question. So the issue that I find with most entry-level jobs, or like when you get out of college or graduate, they require experience that you, like outside experience, or say like a clerical experience that you just can't get from, you know, a college degree. So what my question is how does a recent graduate like me overcome the no experience issue?
I'm totally going to jump in and say you probably do have experience, because the employer might consider experience in a few different ways. They might consider the project that you worked on that's a capstone for a year relevant experience. They might consider your part-time jobs, depending on the role, experience. Let the employer decide that you don't fit that experience. Don't take yourself out of the game. Sorry, so many of my students asked that. I was like, I had to like just jump in. I apologize.
I would just
think
also,
oh, go ahead.
sorry, add that don't limit yourself to internships or job opportunities. If you've done volunteer work, or if you are active in a student group, you have a leadership position on campus, put it on your resume, because at least for our organization, we start tallying up the total number of hours you have in whatever it is that you've been doing. So for us, it doesn't matter if you got paid to do it or not. If you did it as volunteer work, it still counts as qualifying experience. So don't box yourself into that either.
That's a great point. I would say that most employers are starting to become more flexible with job descriptions too. And it's not just black and white, what you see on the page as far as what's required. They're leaving things more open-ended. And I think if you look at job descriptions as you're applying to things, and I would say, I would advise you to go more toward the employers that are leaving things a little more open-ended and taking into account your whole experience, rather than just, okay, you have to have 2 years of this and you have to have these particular 5 skills.
I'd also like to jump in as well, and I think everything that you all shared is extremely valuable. I 100% echo those thoughts. Another piece, however, is specific to our organization. I look for a personality. I don't always look for past experience, because I know with a certain personality, I can develop, coach, mold that person. And sometimes that's even more appealing, is to start with someone who hasn't been elsewhere, because we can really help them grow in the role that we're looking to fulfill. So I would definitely talk up, your personality. What makes you you? What makes you, better than other candidates? And talk about your ambitions. And if you need to pull in any past experiences, it doesn't necessarily have to be professional experience. It could be something that you've experienced, on the personal side that demonstrates how, how dedicated or motivated you are. So think about that when you're talking about yourself, and don't be afraid to talk yourself up. Again, a lot of us are looking for personalities, not always for exact experience.
Yeah, and I, I'll just kind of chime in here. I think one of the challenges I run into when I'm talking with candidates, sometimes people think that to work in financial services, they need to I need to have a business degree. I need to have my MBA. I need to have gone to school for finance. Not so. I work in the human resources department, and I'm someone that has a master's degree in counseling psychology. My background was not in financial services at all. I think, as some of the other panelists have mentioned, we and a lot of employers look for relatable skill sets. We're very, client customer service oriented, either, when we're talking to our external clients, or, when you're interacting with senior management. So if I see, an experience that someone had where they worked in retail, or, anything that involves customer service at all, I'll dig into that. Because typically you have to work at a fast pace. You have to be able to kind of solve issues quickly, and how to provide solutions to customers and make them happy. And we can train you. On Ayco and financial services, we have an 8 to 12 week training program. Typically when people come in, there's a lot of job shadowing. If we're doing it virtually, that's how we'll need to do it. We have classroom sessions. So we can train you on the technical things, and that customer service experience. Looking to make a difference, looking to help others. Those are all relatable skill sets that are helpful for us to have in the organization.
Andy, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, hi everyone, my name is Andy Alcedo. So I just wanted to ask, I'm bilingual and I know Spanish, so I wanted to ask, how would you go about, like as an intern, displaying that skill in your resume other than putting it as a statement, like a written statement? How would you go about expressing that skill?
Ooh, stump the panel.
Well,
Love it.
Andy, I would leave that for a question that you might ask the interviewer at the end of the interview. And when we say, do you have any questions for us? I would say, do you see a place in your organization where this skill, being bilingual, would be valuable, or where it would be useful? Can you envision a place where I could use Spanish and it would help your organization?
Sweet, thank you.
Also, I just want to point out, oftentimes when employers are asking open-ended questions, and that's something that many of us do because we really want to get you to talk versus us talking at you or to you. One of the questions I ask is, what do you think sets you apart from other candidates that may be applying for the same position? Right there, go in with all of the great experiences that you have, and also add that you are bilingual. I can't tell you how extremely valuable that is to so many organizations. Because, and more specifically to our organization, we are actively looking for folks who are bilingual because there's a segment of our market where they can really, develop. So extremely valuable to make sure it's brought up. And if they don't bring it up and if it doesn't come out, then of course, I definitely agree with the other suggestion, which is make sure to mention it at the end.
Thank you.
And even your cover letter would be a great place to include that information. In your cover letter, you can tell your story. You can do your pitch. So the resume has all the fun fact. The cover letter is where you really get to explain why does that matter. So your cover letter might be a nice place to expand upon the little bullet that says, in addition to the skill, I am bilingual.
Okay. So do you believe that the cover letter is still like an essential part of your resume? Because I had some employers tell me that sometimes you don't really need it. But okay, sounds good. Thank you.
I do anyway.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Every employer is different.
Another recommendation when it comes to language skills is I would be sure to indicate your level. If you list it in your resume, indicate what level you actually have. So are you just beginner? But if you're fluent, that's really important for somebody to know. That's huge. So make sure that if you can find a way to put that in your resume, make it very clear, that's very helpful. And here at Peace Corps, we look for people who are good at using other languages. So consider submitting an application to us.
Thank you.
Well, the other thing, Andy, is you're working with Shea Global, and one of the things that you're doing is you're doing all research on a company in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's an example of what you can use as proof, but, demonstrated evidence that you are able to do research on global companies, Spanish speaking.
And that's something I would highlight, like I did X number of hours of research on X topic in Spanish. And that's another way of highlighting that, like, hey, I can really juggle two languages at once, and make that very, very clear in your resume.
Thank you.
I have a question for everyone here. Do interns look at just like focus on one task or just one side of the business, or do they get exposure to multiple sides?
I'll hop in here. At least for us, we would like our interns to kind of cover a numerous different parts of our business, whether it's marketing, sales, operation, et cetera, just so that you kind of get kind of the full picture as to what we're doing here. And certainly, the more an intern can do and the better they can do it at, certainly, as I said earlier, we look to hire interns here as full-time employees. So the more you can learn and grasp and grow into those roles, you're more valuable to us, and I'm sure to the rest of the group.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. So, normally when interns come on, they'll be assigned to a department. So people will apply to an internship to work with a particular department. Depending on that department, you're going to get exposed to quite a lot. If you're, doing any work related to financial planning, Ayco does investment planning, trust and estate work, retirement work, insurance work, and taxes. So you're going to get exposure to all of that. Also, normally, I know this past summer, there were a number of projects that we had groups of interns work on that were more kind of broad in their impact on the organization. So, I mentored one of the interns, and she and I she gave me some of the she showed me some of the work that her group was doing, and it was focused on corporate social responsibility. So kind of broader organizational topics, looking at what we've done, getting some new ideas on what we could do, and then how we're going to do it. So I would say, regardless of the group that you're in, number one, there's a group that you start with and you come in to work with as an intern, and you're going to be doing a lot of that work, the work that department does, but you're also going to get the chance to work on these broader projects that have a bigger impact across the whole company.
Any other student questions?
I have one. Can you hear me? I have one. So, do you guys use LinkedIn for recruiting, and how important is LinkedIn to you guys?
I stalk on LinkedIn on a regular basis to find recent college grads. So yes, it's very important. It's also very important to make sure the information that is in your LinkedIn profile is in numerous places. So I use LinkedIn Recruiter, which is a special tool that my company pays for. And so I can do a few different searches where I can do a keyword search for a skill, or I can go to the skills section and search for that skill. You could have this very specific skill that you have in a description of a job, but you might not have it listed in your skills section on your LinkedIn profile. If I only go to the skills section of LinkedIn, it'll only search your skills section for your LinkedIn profile. You may or may not pop up in your search, my search. If I do a keyword search, then you'll pop up. So really making sure that your LinkedIn profile has all the information possible in there, because there is no page limit, and they're being in different places as well. Yeah, I stalk a lot.
Yeah, I'd say LinkedIn is huge. It's definitely the number 1 or 2 place that we get most of our applicants from, both from the job postings there and just from proactively reaching out to candidates. So yeah, really make sure that things are up to date. Make sure you have a professional picture, that you fill out all the stuff that Megan was just talking about. And feel free to be active on there. Be proactive on there. Send messages to folks like us and say, hey, I'm interested in your organization. Do you know when you're going to be posting things? Things like that. It's never, we're on there all the time. It's not too much of a bother at all.
For most government agencies, they will not recruit through LinkedIn. They might occasionally post something if they want you to know, but most government positions are found at usajobs.gov. But I can say that if somebody were to reach out to me on LinkedIn, I would still answer whoever asked me a question. I would still look to engage with you, but I would probably just refer you to my government email. So just as a heads up, if you're looking for government positions, it's probably best to see if you can get in touch with somebody and see if you can schedule just a chat with them and get to know a little bit more about their position.
So I have a question. So as a recent graduate, college graduate, getting on LinkedIn, maybe not having a lot of context yet, and there's a company that the student is interested in working for. How does the student maneuver to that company on LinkedIn?
In general, I'll kind of chime in here. So in general, I actually do this, for my company. So, Ayco has a company page, and we're a division, a subsidiary of Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs has a company page. I follow both of them, and there's information that's shared on there. I've been pleasantly surprised by the additional material that we've shown. I would say Ayco's kind of traditionally been very shy when it comes to social media, and yes, we include LinkedIn. We think about LinkedIn as social media, but there's more there now than there used to be, and the content is strong. I think even just 5-6 years ago when I applied, there was very little information out there in the general public about Ayco. The website had 2 pages, and I said that in my interview. There's not a lot there. So here's what I found out, but I'm hoping you can tell me more. That's not the case anymore. So I would certainly, if there's companies that you're interested in working with, follow them, because then when you'll get updates to your feed, either in your email, wherever you set up your LinkedIn profile. You get updates to your feed when new jobs go on, for example, at that company. And then, what you'll normally see when you get into one of those job ads or one of those posts, there's normally a link to something else, perhaps a recruiter at that company, or, even if it's a general email box. I know, because my team is so small, and we're doing recruiting for an 1,800 person organization, we have a general mailbox. But if you send something to that general mailbox, we all get it. The people that are going to impact whether or not you're chosen for that role or chosen for an interview. So I would just encourage you, what I'm saying is, don't get discouraged if the link is to kind of a general listing. It's going to get to the people who need to see it. So I would say those are some tips.
Anybody else with a question?
I had a question.
Oh, Alicia. Oh no, Alexis.
Yeah. So I don't know really how to word it well, but if your first internship becomes your job, which in my case, I still am doing an internship with Repeat Business Systems as a logistics coordinator. And I ended up getting a role during COVID as a supply coordinator, as working full time every day. But if that's your first internship and then you end up liking your job, how do you know to take on more opportunities or not to? Because you're happy, so you don't know if you're missing out on other opportunities or not.
I can answer that one, because I think we're very similar in that I started as an intern with AFLAC and I did not pursue other opportunities. And even though I had others that presented themselves to me, I think you'll just know. I think if you feel fulfilled in your position, if you feel that you are reaching the level of success that you are aiming for, you will know your level of comfort there. And for me, I didn't even look at any other opportunities outside of my internship with AFLAC and then moving on. I think one thing that kept me there is the fact that I had a pathway for upward growth. So one thing I might suggest to you is take a look at what does the next 5-10 years look like in that role, and what opportunities do you have in that same organization. And if the answer is there's a lot of opportunity to grow, then you're likely in a good place. Or if it's, hey, this is really the end of it and I can't grow anymore, then maybe it is time to just see what's out there and see if there's anything that could allow you to grow further in your career path.
Thank you. I appreciate that. There's a lot of growth, and they even talk about, we bought out a new company during COVID called EdNed. It's basically a mailing company out in Westmoreland, New York. And with that being said, they have a whole supply in a warehouse out there, and they even try to have me go up there a couple days a week to help them benefit their warehouse and their inventory numbers and their inventory turns and everything as well. So I am getting around basically and just helping every branch out, and we're continuing to grow as a company. We started out as a small one, and now during COVID buying out other companies, we're just growing, and there's more job opportunities and work opportunities. And I started doing finance and mailing during this internship, and I never thought I would do that. So it is definitely cool to learn all the aspects.
I would also suggest, if you haven't already done so already, approach them now to ask them, how do you position yourself to get into higher levels? Even if there's no open opportunity currently, you can work on the skills that they would like you to know and really have down, so that, again, you are that obvious choice. It is so impressive for any employer to have someone approach them, regardless of what level they are at, whether it's entry level or if they've been there for many years, to approach the employer when there are no opportunities currently and ask, how do I make myself better? What can I do outside of my current role to be the best that I can be for this organization, so that you choose me? And that goes a long way when you are proactive with your employer.
Thank you.
Krista, you would actually say, choose me? You would use those words?
I've had folks who have approached me in over 15 years and said, I want this role. I want to be chosen. What can I do? And I appreciate anyone, forthcoming like that, especially because in our business, the people who succeed are the ones who have to step outside of their comfort zone. We are in sales, we are in marketing, we're in customer service. We have to ask for the sale. We do not get many, people who come to us and say, hey, we want to sign up for AFLAC. We have to be out there promoting our businesses. So we have to always be, the ones who take the initiative. So when I see that initiative happen, I know that that person, is right for our organization. And you catch the attention of the people you need to catch. So again, even if they don't have an open position, I would absolutely be the one to kind of catch them off guard because they'll remember you.
So in an interview, and you're interviewing for a position and you really want the position, everything's seemingly lining up, right? And, you're excited, about the opportunity of getting that job. Do you say that? What do I need for you to choose me for this position?
Yep. Because I understand there's a lot of opportunities that are out there, and I need to also know where the candidate stands when I'm selecting for the position. So if I only have a certain amount of positions to fill, I want the most enthusiastic, ambitious person, because that will come through in their work performance. So someone who really wants it performs at a higher level than someone who is settling for a position or is just kind of going through the motions. So I am looking for any sign of someone who is really, chomping at the bit to get this position. So when somebody comes out and says, I want this role, what do you need to see from me to, make me be that obvious choice? I'm like, okay, I'm engaged. I'm all in working with this person. And what I like about that is they are coachable. Let's be honest. There's not one person who goes to a position who has every single, experience level, and you're always going to learn somewhere. I want to hear about the people who want to learn more and build more, because they are ones who are, in my opinion, the best to work with. They're open for growth. And if we're forever growing, we're always going to be, exceeding the positions that we're in and again, growing in our paths.
I just want to add to that. I have to jump off for an 11:30 call that got put on my calendar. But in my previous role, I made every position that I had. I started as a career counselor and had those open conversations with my boss. And I was like, okay, here's what I want to do. This is what I want to do moving forward. And it didn't happen right away. It took a little while, but I had those conversations of like, and there was never a threat to leave. It was, I want to stay. I want to grow. Here's what I like. Here's what I don't like. Here's what I think that I'm good at. Here's what I need to work on. Can we make it happen? And it took a little bit of time, and then I got it, and I made it happen. And I left there because there was no more room to grow. There was, but I didn't want that position. And so that's the only reason I left after 8 years, is because I saw another opportunity to grow more at another company. And I'm doing that right now. I'm ex-title of corporate recruiter, but I'm constantly having conversations with my boss to say, okay, here's what I think we can do for this team. Here's what I want to do with college recruiting. Let's make that happen. So constant communication with your employer is huge.
Even if it's just to get better at the role that you're at too, ask for feedback, because again, that makes you approachable. It shows that you want to do the best at your position. So even if it's not translating to a promotion, understand that when a promotion does come, those conversations go a long way.
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback a little bit on what's been said. I think for people that don't do recruiting, they might not know. I mean, as a recruiter, I can't tell you how many times I have an interview and I'm like, I don't know if that person really wants to work here. A lot of times I'll ask candidates about what they know about our company, and they'll just kind of give very perfunctory, basic 2-word answers. I'll kind of ask for a little bit of follow-up or a little bit of elaboration, get nothing. So, I mean, appear interested. It seems really basic, But if you're having an interview, you know, bring your enthusiasm as much as possible. I know as a candidate, it can be, you know, tiring to be on many different interviews, you know, fill out a lot of applications, but give yourself time to kind of bring your best self to the interview. What I mean by that is, you know, think about your calendar. You might think, oh, okay, you know, I have four interviews today or 2 interviews today, and I can do them back to back. Give yourself a little space there to kind of replenish, you know, get a drink of water, take a walk, get the energy up. Enthusiasm goes a long way. You know, even if you don't have the perfect words, or you might not have, you know, every single check mark on previous experience or whatever, if an employer or prospective employer gets the sense that you are really interested in the job and want to work at the company, they're going to be more likely to move you along in the process. It sounds really basic, but a lot of candidates I talk to, it's like, I don't know if they really want the job. They don't really seem that interested. We're just kind of like another number to them. And I think as much as possible as recruiters, we probably all try to help, you know, make every candidate feel special when we're interacting with them. You know, we're trying not to bring in the baggage of the other 10 interviews we may have had in the day. I think candidates, it's important to be the same way. You know, don't bring in kind of the negative thoughts from a negative interaction you may have had with another company or another interview to the interview that you're in. You know, kind of allow yourself, give yourself the space to rejuvenate and be as fresh as possible for that next interaction.
I think Liam has a question.
Bye, everyone. Sorry, I have to jump off early, but I'm happy to connect with anyone on LinkedIn and happy to answer any other questions you have in the future. Bye.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you, Megan. Okay,
So,
Liam.
so from what we've been talking about, obviously, as employers, you want to see enthusiasm and, you know, a drive, but what are some, you know, things that you don't want to see in candidates when you're interviewing?
I can share. And I think it was just mentioned, I think Benjamin may have mentioned it, but don't bring in baggage, right? So if somebody's asking, you know, what are you looking for? What, you know, kind of those open-ended questions, don't bring in anything that is negative from past experiences. Oftentimes I find the interview really kind of goes sideways when someone starts to, you know, share with me a negative experience from a past employer or, you know, a past internship or experience. You always want to talk about the positive, not the negative. So even if it's something that kind of, you know, leads you towards a conversation that could mention a negative experience, always try to talk about the positive of that negative experience, if that makes sense. Do not, you know, talk about any past employers in any negative way. Again, this sounds very basic, but I see so many people make these mistakes during the interview process. And, you know, typically from an employer perspective, if I'm hearing someone talk negatively about an employer, a lot of times that is a poor reflection on them and likely makes me believe they might be the problem, not the employer. So you definitely don't want to, you know, bring in any negative experience. And if it ever does come up, talk about how a negative experience could turn into positive or what you learned about it.
I would just like to add, Liam, to your question. I think it's not bringing your shy self. I think it's, you know, we heard many of people in the call today saying we're looking for personality, we're looking for excitement, we're looking for enthusiasm. So I think being quiet and subdued and not giving direct eye contact and movement and just being who you are, I think not doing that will be detrimental. And then the other thing is, from what I hear back from students, well, they asked me, you know, why do I want the position? What makes me different? And I kind of didn't really know exactly what to say. Not having an answer, I think, is probably would be something you don't want to have happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just again echo what Krista said. You know, I think as a recruiter, I'm always thinking about, whether or not the candidate I'm talking to could be my colleague. Would I like to have this person as a colleague? And if, someone is talking about, a disgruntled experience that they have, or a disgruntled coworker that they had, or a manager they didn't get along with, that's kind of like the throwing somebody under the bus thing. I think, what would, if I were to hire on somebody that would be willing to kind of, pass the buck, not take responsibility, kind of blame issues on other people, what are they going to do if we hire them on? They're probably going to do the same thing, and if something is not going well, my concern would be that they wouldn't come directly to me and we could kind of work through the issue together. They would, go over my head, talk to my manager, and again, not be accountable. So, think about as many positive experiences as you can talk about it. You should relay positive experiences that you had with your coworkers, times where you really felt engaged at your previous employers. It is important for us as recruiters to know what you like to do. And, maybe the role that you're interviewing for isn't the perfect fit, but I think, most recruiters will recommend you for future hire at the company, when, the appropriate position arrives. So, definitely bring as many positive experiences to the plate as you can. And I think that that'll go a long way. It might not get you that position that day, but it'll certainly make a positive impression on the employer, and the employer will think, okay, this is someone that we'd like to have on in our organization. I think that would be a benefit to the team. I think there's someone I would enjoy working with every day. I think, that's my thought process.
So I have a question. So what's the current protocol for following up post-interview, or if you haven't heard back from an employer?
Well, at our company, or our agency rather, we have one interview, and it's about an hour-long interview, and we want to know that the candidate is serious. And so it is helpful if you send a follow-up and say, hey, thank you for the interview, generally just by email, and say, thank you for the interview. I was really excited to learn about this, or I was really excited to hear about, this topic that you shared more information on. I think it goes a really long way. And we also, because from the time that we receive your application to the time that you might actually depart, in our case, for an international placement, there's a pretty significant chunk of time. So if you have gained additional experience, let us know. Send us an email. Say, hi, I applied to this position. I just wanted to let you know I gained some extra skills, some extra qualifications. I'd love for you to just be updated on where I'm at. That goes a really long way, because it shows us that I'm still interested. I'm still here. I'm knocking on your door. I haven't gone anywhere. So that, I think, really is helpful for our candidates.
My current administrator, who is going to be moving on in the spring after he graduates from his master's program, I had such an overwhelming response to I posted that position, and any employer knows when you post a position and you get a ton of, action on that post, you really do your due diligence and you go through every single one. It takes a long time, but you really want to ensure you're picking the correct person. And I was about halfway through my search, and my administrator, he emailed me, and then he followed by a phone call, and it was not, it was very appropriately spaced out, but still at the same time showing his true excitement. And I decided to stop my search, because I thought, if this person really wants this position, I think he will really excel at it. And he's been a phenomenal fit to our organization. And it's been great during the time that he, is with us. And it was very clear that, it will only go until, spring semester 21. So we knew that going into it. But I just loved his follow through. I loved his excitement. And I thought, if he is like this now, I just want to see what he can do in this role. So it's been a great fit. So I definitely agree. An email is great for a follow-up. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone and just check in and see how the search is going. It goes a long way.
I have one last question before I think we wrap up. So every students have met you, and it could be in this kind of a situation, or it could be somebody that they meet through a friend, or they go to a meeting. How do they follow up thanking you? Is it email? Is it text? Is it handwritten? How do people say thank you now? I mean, I heard, we're in the response to the follow-up for an interview, email. Is email the appropriate way?
I think email is the most appropriate way. It's definitely the way that's easiest to keep track of, and that you don't sort of lose something as far as when we're looking at it from our perspective. But it also shows, maybe you're a good writer and you can craft a nice, 3 or 4 sentence follow-up that really makes an impact. So I think that email would be the most appropriate way, but.
Because our students love texting, but I try to push them toward email. So I'm glad to hear you say that.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, I think, I don't know, I don't want to speak for all, the other employer representatives, but, we use an applicant tracking system. So when you send an email, it can be tracked. It's good to have some kind of a record. I'm always impressed when somebody actually does take the time, actually writes a handwritten letter. But that's more likely to get lost. And an email, can be quickly forwarded. So we have a scheduling team, and a lot of times, because they're so involved setting up the initial phone interview with the candidates that we're considering, that's who candidates will go to after a phone interview if they didn't jot down my information, or I haven't had the time to send them a follow-up email themselves. So they'll send the thank you email to our scheduler, and she'll send it along to me. So, it'll get to the right person. I think email is a great way for things to be retained.
I also think
And
too.
we can't do text, sorry. If someone texted me on my cell phone, that can't be logged. We're a financial services industry. We got compliance things to be aware of. I can't respond to the text.
And to your point, I also think, every organization is different with how they prefer to communicate. So don't be afraid to ask, hey, what's the best way to follow up after this? Because in some cases, some may want to receive that email. Typically, when I get to a certain point of the interview process, or if somebody's going into onboarding, at that point it shifts to phone call or texting sometimes for us, because it is easier and quicker. So it's okay and appropriate to ask the employer, what is the most appropriate form of communication at this point in time where we are at in the process? And they will definitely give you that direction.
Yeah, I wouldn't want a candidate to text me during the process. Certainly, obviously we've all said email is the most appropriate way to communicate. When we get going, and we do have an employee though, we do text quite a bit. Just because, it's quicker, it's easier, you can move right on, but there's still certain conversations that need to happen via, email and certainly in person. I'm not quite sure if many industries meet in person as much as they used to, but, it's still pretty important for us, but definitely not a text during the process.
Well, thank you for your advice on that. I know we've been having a lot of conversations around email too, just in college. So that really helps to hear the advice there. And every industry is different, like we said. So I certainly would encourage all of our students to follow up with you. Your preferred method, so we saw in the chat, and I just wanted to also put a little plug for our office. In the chat, I put information of how to make an appointment and also how to reach out to me. Career planning is here for you, for resumes, for mock interviews, for searching for internships and jobs, with cover letters, with LinkedIn profiles. So I did see some familiar faces today, but I'd like to see a little bit more of you coming in and using our services. So, but thank you so much for all the students that joined today. And Lee, do you want to say anything else?
Just thank you. Thank you to our employers. Thank you for your candid responses. handling questions that students are sometimes reluctant to ask, and we did get rolling after a while. It always helps for one person to start. So thank you, and I hope our students connect with you. I know a couple have already told me they've chatted out to you. So thanks again, and I hope that we continue to have a strong relationship, because I think our students will match up very well with many of the employers here today. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Round of applause.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Take care.
Dr. Brownell, are we all set?
Yes, I was just going to say, my students were all finished for the day. Thank you. Okay, Lauren, good job. Thank you for the setup.
You're welcome.
And keeping us all focused on technology.
No problem.
All right, see you soon.
See ya.
Virtually.